MMA Rants and Raves, UFC 128, Shogun versus Evans. Guys, let's talk about this fight. I'd like to start this off by talking about Shogun. You know, it's kind of interesting, guys. Shogun is the type of athlete, you know, that people talk about. And I'm not just talking about mixed martial arts. I'm talking about in all of sports. You know, sports like football, basketball, baseball. Guys that people talk about, how good they could be. You know, showing signs that they're superstars. But then they have injuries that set them back or finish their career, end their career. And they say, oh, how good they can be if they weren't injured. That if, right? You know, the what ifs. And Shogun has been this type of guy, you know, in certain circumstances. I mean, you know, he picked up the Pride Grand Prix. I mean, he showed signs that he's an absolutely unbelievable fighter. I mean, the guy shows speed. His Muay Thai is absolutely lethal. His striking is world class. His speed, his cardio. I mean, he has everything, you know, to be a champion. And, you know, especially one fight that stands out is the fight back in Pride when he fought Quinton Jackson. I mean, he was a heavy underdog in that fight. And guys, I've never seen anybody do to Quinton Jackson what he did. I suggest you watch that fight if you haven't seen it. It was back in Pride. I mean, unbelievable how deadly. The guy is a destroyer. I mean, he is an absolute destroyer. I don't see many guys that can stand up with this guy in the light heavyweight division. I mean, his Muay Thai, his leg kicks, his striking power is just off the charts. It's unbelievable, you know? And just when he gets there, he gets to that point, you know, where he's showing that greatness as a fighter, the injuries come and set him back. I mean, what is it already? What, 3 knee surgeries? He had that broken arm against Mark Coleman. So, I mean, how much could the human body take? You know, it's surgery after surgery. Now, what sets Shogun apart from those other athletes that people spoke about, you know, that haven't been able to get there, the what ifs, they could have been great, you know, if they were able to overcome the injuries, able to stay healthy. He actually was able to overcome adversity, and he was able to get the light heavyweight title. I mean, you're talking about him coming back from the injuries. You know, he had that devastating loss against Forrest Griffin. You know, many people were wondering if he was going to be back or how good he'll be if he comes back. And even against the second Mark Coleman fight, you know, it looked like his cardio was an issue. He wasn't in good enough shape to, you know, to really put Coleman away. He was being taken down a lot. And I mean, to come back from that, and then, you know, he faces Machida. He finally gets that title shot that he's been waiting for so long. And, you know, many people thought he won that fight. It was a close fight. And, you know, he ends up with a loss. I mean, talk about that. I mean, after working so hard, he has to be set back by a very unpopular judge's decision. And then he's still able to come back, and he's able to finish Machida like no one has been able to even come close to, which was absolutely shocking to me, how he finished that fight. I mean, it's just remarkable. He was able to overcome all these injuries and adversity, all right? And he was actually able to win that title. I mean, I don't know of anybody that people talk about, you know, how great they could have been, you know, if not for the injuries, and he's still able to get that gold. It's just a remarkable story. So, you know, that's where Shogun is basically, you know, far above the rest of these guys that where they say, oh, how good they could have been. It's just a point I wanted to make. And I mean, it's a remarkable story. He's been able to get that title. Now, as far as the fight is concerned, here's the deal with Shogun. I mean, like I just said, you know, how much more could the human body take? I mean, this is what, his 3rd knee surgery? He also had the broken arm. I mean, he's injury prone. And granted, you know, he's been able to come back. I mean, he looked spectacular in the 2 Machida fights, you know. So he was able to come in good shape. And of course, you know, coming in good shape means staying healthy. You know, you have to be able to train. And injuries, you just can't train. Or you can't train to the point where you want to train. And it also causes ring rust, since it causes you to be out for a while. But he looked great in those 2 fights. The cardio wasn't an issue. In the first fight, he went to 5 rounds. He looked really good. So he looked good getting deep into fights. as opposed to the way he looked against the Mark Coleman fight, which is, only a 3-round fight. He looked really tired in that fight, so he looked great, and, they say that when he fought Machida, he had that injury. So imagine that. I mean, he was able to, look the way he did despite the injury. So it's really remarkable that he's able to even fight with injuries. I mean, just a really tough guy. It's a great story. It really is. So, if you look at that, that's something to look at. Now, the issue is, like I said, if he can come in healthy, despite all these knee surgeries, the broken arm that he had, to continue to stay healthy when he gets into this fight, come fight time, I see him winning this fight. There's no question he is going to win this fight if he's able to, have that, put that all together. But the question is, will he be healthy enough? Again, another knee surgery, that he had after the second Machida fight. Now, as far as Evans is concerned, something I want to mention about Evans, he's not really a big light heavyweight. He's only 5'11". He's got, like a 74.5-inch reach. And, these light heavyweights are monsters. A lot of them are really big, especially guys like Forrest Griffin, I mean, a lot of these light heavyweights are really big, like Ryan Bader, John Jones. I mean, big light heavyweights. Now, the thing about Evans is he's got speed, his cardio, looks good, and he's got high-level wrestling. His wrestling is pretty good too, and we saw that especially against Quinton Jackson, in his last fight. So, the way I see this fight going, they say styles make fights. Stylistically, on paper, it's really a good fight for Evans because, Shogun's a guy that you can take down. How good he is, he's been taken down a lot. Even in the Machida fight, the second fight, Machida took him down, And Mark Coleman, took him down time and time again. So, this is a guy that this is a guy that can be taken down. Now, the point I want to make is that although Evans' game plan, the way I see it, should be to go for wrestling, he's got to be careful because Shogun is one of those guys that can make you pay for those takedowns. I mean, when you close the distance on him, if he catches you in a Muay Thai clinch, he can end the fight like that. Like I said, you watch that Quinton Jackson fight, you see how lethal this guy is with his knees and his Muay Thai. You have to be very careful against a guy like this. So, whatever you're going to go for, you have to have the right opportunity to get that takedown. And, of course you can't be so one-dimensional and predictable. If you are, then you're really, it's really going to be a situation where, he can make you pay for that. So he has to pick his positions when to go for it. Evans' stand-up is also good. He's a good stand-up fighter. He's got good head movement. He's got good speed, but, he should stick to it when he sees the opportunity. If he tries to strictly stand up with this guy, that's a recipe for disaster. That's like suicide, in a fight like this. He's just too dangerous. So here's the way I see it. Evans basically has to stick to his wrestling, mix it up a bit, and then try to keep Shogun guessing and go for the takedown when he sees it. He's got to stay away from that Muay Thai and those leg kicks. The leg kicks are lethal. So that's the key. It's not going to be easy. And, like I said, it depends how healthy Shogun is going to be. Which Shogun are we going to see? That's the big question mark. You see, Evans is less of a question mark. It seems he's coming into this fight healthy. But Shogun, of course, is coming off another knee surgery. So it's really going to depend on that. So as far as Shogun, he comes in healthy and looks the way he always does. I see him winning this fight. If Evans comes in with a good game plan, uses his wrestling, mixes it up, on the feet, I see him, having a chance in this fight, and I see him winning the fight. If Shogun comes into this fight with cardio issues, if he comes into this fight, with any lingering effects from those knee surgeries, then I see Evans having an advantage in the fight. So anyway, that's the way I see it. It's going to be a very intriguing fight. So I'd like to know what you think about the fight and the UFC 128 card. Please leave your comments below the video, rate this video and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in.